Hello everyone, welcome back to another session by K21 Academy. Today our expert trainer will be talking about build and BuildConfig. So let's get into the video.
So there are a couple of terminologies we are using every time and then, that is called as a deployment config and build config. So I want to show you exactly what is the meaning of this. So just think about that, what exactly we are doing here. Consider that we have, this is our version controls. Maybe you have GitHub, GitLab, maybe local files, remote repositories, Bitbucket and all different version control systems are there, right? And what you want to do finally, you want to create an image. This is what our target is. We have a source code, and from the source code we would like to create an image. So what OpenShift does here, guys, what it does, it creates one object, or you can say one process. That process is called as the build process. Okay, so you remember, guys, we have seen in the container world or Kubernetes world, so if you want to create an image, you need a Docker file. So to create an image, we need a Docker file. So inside the Docker file, what we required? We required a base image. So the base image is called as the builder image. Okay. So we need a base image. We need a code, source code. So that will be cloned and it will create one Docker file for you. So along with that base image and the steps which are required to clone the source code from the different version control system, right? It will create one process. That process is called as the build. So this Docker file will create an image. Once the build process is executed with the builder image, you will get a one entity that called as a image. So what is a build? Build is nothing but it is a process which is used to create an image with the help of builder image and the source code whichever you are defining. Now source code can be different, and the definition in which the build definition which we write in one YAML file, that YAML file is called as the config file, that is a build config. So you will find out the source of the source code, which strategy you are going to use to build the image. All that information will be written inside the build config file. This process is also called as from the source code to image is one of the, it is nothing but S2I. Okay, so once the image is created, that image will be stored inside the image stream. So what is image stream? Or it is internal OpenShift registry. Inside that it will store, like what we do in the Docker images, right? In the image, when we pull the image, it gets stored, right? So similarly, it gets stored inside the internal registry called as a OpenShift registry. Another name, it is called as image stream. So that is what the build config does, right? It just does the job of creating the image with the definition of build config and puts that inside the image stream. Then the second thing comes that deployment config. So what deployment configuration does, it picks up the image, whatever the output of the build config is there. This image will be picked up by the deployment config because we want to create a container, right? So deployment config will pick up the image along with its configuration details and everything, and it will create a container, and that container will be deployed as a deployment, which we remember in the Kubernetes, right? Which will be deployed as a deployment inside the OpenShift Container Platform. So what is the job of the deployment config? Pick up the image, create a container, and deploy that as a deployment. So what is the feature of the deployment? It can scale out, scale in, all right? You can self-healing, maintaining the desired state, all that things come with this one. Persistent storage and volumes and config maps and secrets can be associated with this deployment. Yes, so build takes the source code, creates the image with the help of build config. Deployment config picks up the image, creates the container, and deploy it as a deployment. Once this is done, then what OpenShift does, it creates the service. And then if you are creating the deployment with the help of web console, automatically this route will also get created. But if you are doing it from the command line, then it doesn't create a routes automatically. You have to expose the service and it will create a route automatically. This is the entire stuff, guys, here what OpenShift does. Now, I want to just drill down more about this build. So I have one slide. I have created one slide for you guys. So what is that slide? Look at this. So what is a build? Build is the process of transforming input parameters into a resulting object called as a runnable image. So most often the process is used to transform the input parameters or a source code into a runnable image. And once the image is created, it can get stored inside the internal registry, or you can store on Docker Hub also. So this becomes your output, this becomes your input, and to build this one, to complete the process of building, you require a one object definition that is called as a build config. Whatever the input parameters are there, or what kind of image you would like to create, or where you would like to store that, all that is defined inside the build config. Okay, so what is a build config? A build config object is the definition of the entire build process. So what is the input parameters? What are the different input parameters that we can give to this build? Okay, so this is something called as a Dockerfile definitions, extracting some sort of the information from the existing image. You can give the Git repositories, or if you have source code like a binary local input secrets or any other external artifacts that you create, give the input as an input to this build configuration. So this becomes your source. So how this source will be processed to the build or given to the input, that is called as the strategies. And by default, OpenShift supports 3 to 4 different strategies. One of them is a Docker build. Second one is a source to image. Third one is a custom build and pipelines. Right. So this is something which is coming under the CI/CD pipeline only, guys. Right. So, but these are the build strategies. So when you define a build config, inside that you need to define when you are going to define the source by which strategy would like to bring the source and make a runnable image out of it. You need to define that. If you are a Docker build or source strategy or maybe a custom strategy, you need to define it, right? Okay, so once you define that one, the build config will do the job and it will create a runnable image. All right. And then what is the trigger? There are certain triggers are also there. What is a trigger? Trigger is nothing but execute this event when some input is coming, right? So you define the input. Okay, so if there is a webhook changes are there, if there is any change coming from the webhook, okay, then initiate a process, initiate a trigger, initiate an event. Or if there is some changes happen in the images, right? Okay, then build a trigger, right? Or if there is any configuration change happens, then also you can trigger the build, right? So I can have a source code in the GitHub. From that you can create a build. Build will create an image and that will be deployed. Okay, but next time, let's say later on there was some problem, so we changed the source code at the GitHub. The moment you change the source code, OpenShift will trigger the event and it will inform to the build that there is a change in the source code. Okay, so build configuration file or build process will be triggered and it will create a different image altogether to deploy the new container. So you can define different types of the triggers inside the build configuration file so that you can get a modified image and it will be deployed with the newer version of your application. So this is the build, right? So how we define the build, that we'll see, guys. But this is important to understand that we have a different input sources. Okay, that we can define a strategy that how you would like to give the input to the build with the certain strategies. And when you want to trigger the build automatically, that you can define as a build triggers. All right. And this comes under the output section, and that is precisely there in the build configuration file. Okay, so let me just try to show you. So if it is a source definition to build config file, so how will define it? You have a source from Git. So you are defining here a Git as a source. You give the entire path of your source code where you have maintained. Then images. This is what you are defining, right? That is called as a I want the image from image stream, or maybe whose name is my input image colon latest, which is from this namespace. And where you would like to, so there is something which is important. This path has to be understood. Destination dir and source path. Destination dir is something where you want to deploy the files, right? Or where the files will be copied. So, and one more thing is the context directory. So destination directory and context directory, these are the two important things here. So there is a source code available, there is images are available, right? As an input to the build, you will get these different inputs, guys, like a source code or maybe some image information where it will, or another configuration files. So where it will get stored. So that will be stored where you say that destination directory. So all that application code which gets cloned or images which is required to be used for this one, its path information or any other configuration changes, whichever you write there, all that will come inside this destination directory. And if you are using a context directory, then it may not check that destination directory. Okay, so these are the directories. So if you are giving the context, if you are writing a context directory here, I think most of the things will get stored inside this one. And so precedence will be for the context directory. And if at all you want to specify some Dockerfile commands, you can specify like this one as well. So when you run a build, what happens? That is what I want to tell you. So when you run a build, working directory is constructed and all input content is placed in the working directory, right? So Git repository is cloned into the working directory. Files specified from input images are copied into the working directory using the target path. Okay, so this is what I was trying to say. This is working directory. Destination directory is nothing but a working directory. Okay, but the build process changes the directories into the context directory if you have defined it. And if you have defined it, then inline Dockerfile, if any, is written to the current directory. Any input content that resides outside the context directory is ignored by the build. So precedence is given to the context directory. So this need to be understood and remember, guys. So what happens when you run a build? It copies everything inside the working directory or your context directory. So how you can specify the output? So we can specify the input. I'll show you that one input section of the build configuration. But how your output section can be defined. So you say that, look, my image should be stored inside the image stream. So you can define in the specification that is output to whatever the image stream tag you will give or whatever the name sample image latest you will give, it will get stored inside that. Or you say that, no, I want to store my image on this registry. If you have specified this registry somewhere right outside, so you can definitely specify that as well. So this is for the external registry and this is for the internal registry of the OpenShift. So build that uses the Docker or source to image strategy result in the creation of new container image. This image then pushed to the container image registry specified in the output section of the build specification. So this is something which is important to understand. Now, this is what I wanted to explain about the build strategies. We discussed about the three build strategies, right? One is Docker strategy. That is first strategy. So in the Docker strategy, see how we write the information about the from which image stream you would like to pick up the, or as you would like to use a base image. So defining a base image. How you can define the Dockerfile path. Where is your Dockerfile? If you want to pick up the Dockerfile, you can specify it like this one. If at all you want to specify any proxy information, you can specify, or any other environmental parameters you want to set up, you can use this strategy. You can write this way. This is just to show you the syntax, how to define the base image, because that is what required, right? Because we are discussing about the build strategy called as the Dockerfile strategy. So in the Dockerfile strategy, what is required? You require a Docker file. Inside that Docker file, you will require the base image. So you can define the base image here. You can define the Docker path here. If at all you want to specify any environmental parameter, you can specify. Or if you want to specify any volume information, you can specify like this. It is similar, like exactly the way we define in the Kubernetes structure. The same to same methodologies are there. You can see here, these are the volumes name. What is the name of the volume is secret MUN. What is the mount path? This is the destination path where it will be mounted. What is the source secret, right? Sometimes we require a secrets for that. So you can use the secrets also here. This is the destination path for, this is another way. So you can pass the information to pull this particular information with the help of secrets, and you can use the information with the config map also, which is plain text format. So this is Dockerfile. If you are using a build strategy called as a Dockerfile strategy, these are the syntaxes, guys. We will see that in detail, right? And if you are using a build strategy called as a source to image, then you have to use the source strategy. Strategy is called as a source strategy. Here is a Docker strategy, right? See the difference. Source strategy. The rest of the things are almost same. You can specify the environmental parameter or maybe a image which you want to use, or maybe the volumes you want to use. The most of the things remain same. But yes, difference is the source strategy which you are using. That is strategy type is a source strategy. That is nothing but a S2I, source to image. And one where we were discussing about the custom strategy. So custom strategy is nothing but you are not picking up the standard methodology or standard documentation or standard process of the OpenShift, but you have some source code and you want to create your custom image. All right. So you want to use your own custom image to build the final image. So in that case, you need to give the builder image. So which builder image? So this is what I was trying to explain you guys. Let me just show you. Right, this one. In the Docker file, we have a base image that is called as a builder image. So if you are normally in the source to image, or if you are using a Docker strategy, right? Strategy called as a Docker file. In that case, most of the time we use the image from OpenShift database. But there is a possibility that you don't want to use the OpenShift image. You want to use your custom image as a builder image. So that time you can provide this information here. So that time you can use the custom source file. So here you need to specify which image builder you want to use. You can specify here. Okay, so this is no, look at this. The strategy is custom strategy now. Then you can use the how to call the secrets, how to pass the environmental parameter. These are the some of the syntaxes. You don't have to remember. And yes, guys, you might be thinking how we can create the your own custom image, custom builder image. So you know what I'm referring to when I'm saying custom builder image. I hope that you are understanding what I'm trying to say. That when we say that I want to create maybe let's say sample images, right? So it gives me these templates. So when I'm using the basic Python, right? So it is going to use the Python builder image. See here, this kind of image it will use. So this is already there inside this OpenShift database. If I want to do it from, let's say, import from Git. So if I give here the location called as, let me just try to show you, github.com. I'm just trying to show you what exactly is the, let me just say this is my one of the repository. Let me copy it. This is HTML file. So if I specify here HTML, right? So it asks me that which builder image you would like to use, whether you want PHP. So these are the internal images, but there's a possibility that whatever the software which you are developing, it might not be from these images, list of the images. Okay, these builder images are not supporting for your software. So in that case, what you will do, you need to create your custom image. And to do that, there is one software which is developed, guys, and that you can use. So you can use your custom images or build your custom images with builder. So this is the actually software normally used to create a custom images, right? So here in this OpenShift platform, you can use this one. So how to create that and everything, it is written here. This is a normal kind of a Docker file where you see this is the build image or pod which you need to use, and on the top of that, you can deploy all your RPMs or all your whatever the files are there that you can definitely create. And from this, you can create your own Docker file or own image. Right, once, and this is the first thing is that you have to write. So this is step one to create a custom image. Second step is that you have to use whatever the image you have created. In the same directory, you can create a file named called as a dockerfiles.sample. This file is included in the custom build image and defines the image that is produced by the custom build. So you need to specify here. And from this one, and then you can use in the same directory, you can create the, what you say. So you can say that you can define such commands. This is a build config. And inside the build config, you can give the metadata. This is a strategy, is called as a custom, and what from where this image is coming. So you need to specify whatever the image you have right now created. You can use this one, and what is the output strategy, what is where you want to keep your output, that is in the image stream, right? So this you need to create. So you can create a custom image builds with the builder by using this command line as well. So you can use the command oc new build, binary strategy is docker, name is custom builder image.
So, guys, this was our expert from Team K21 Academy. And if you could not understand anything or if you want to dive deeper in the topics discussed, then we have something really special for you. We have our free class on OpenShift for beginners, and under this free class, you'll be learning about what is Red Hat OpenShift, why OpenShift skill is in demand, OpenShift architecture, its components, and what not. So let me just give you a walkthrough as how you can register for this free class. All you have to do is just log on to k21academy.com/OpenShift02, and you'll be seeing this kind of interface. You just have to click on book your free seat now. Select an event date, enter your name, your email address, your phone number, and click on yes, save my seat. After that, you'll be seeing this kind of URL. So you just have to save that URL, add it to your calendars, and I'll see you in the free class. Till then, keep learning.